Is Europe on a path to self-destruction?
Protesters highlighted issues being faced by the country. Czech Republic is going through their worst cost of living crisis in 3 decades. They recorded their highest inflation of 17.5% since 1993 in July. The inflation has been worsened by the rise in energy prices, the cost of COVID-19 vaccinations, and the influx of immigrants.
The standard of living is plummeting, and European politicians could not care less about the average European.
To people in Ukraine, we stand with you as long as you need us. Then I want to deliver, no matter what my German voters think.
Hands. Are we the baddies?
Now, how about some examples? Germans are told to take cold showers, drive less, and heat less. There's even a problem with getting toilet paper, so now the whole lack of toilet paper joke is no longer just about the end of the Soviet Union, now is it?
Hands.
No matter what my German voters think.
Are we the baddies?
The French face rolling blackouts and other energy problems. Britons face the biggest living standard shock in a century. 3 million English people will plunge into poverty. Thousands of pubs are facing closure due to a rise in energy bills. On average, 10,000 Britons die each year because they live in a cold home, and this was before 2022. Now, experts warned that energy rationing this winter could see people told not to cook until 8 p.m. and pubs to close at 9 p.m. Experts have also told Mail Online that there is no escape for the 66 million people in the UK who will be encouraged to cut their use of gas and electricity this winter and even turn off their lights.
And to my Russian friends,
are we the baddies?
The Dutch government is asking its people to take shorter showers and dress warmer in the winter whilst reducing heating in their homes. The Belgian government is asking people to defrost their freezers regularly and use the microwave to heat food. Greece, Ireland, Spain, and other nations are regulating maximum heating temperatures and air conditioning temperatures whilst instilling fines for businesses and individuals who choose not to follow. The same goes for all other nations and nationalities of Europe. Gas prices soaring, food prices soaring, standards of living are dropping, and Europeans will have to endure this at the behest of their owners from across the pond in the United States. These all seem to be minor adjustments, but it's really a sign of how out of touch with reality European governments are. Boris Johnson, for example, suggested that Britons buy a kettle for £20 to save £10 a year on electricity bills. The president of the German state of Baden-Württemberg, I'm not sure if I'm pronouncing that correctly, tells Germans to use washcloths instead of showering, while the Chancellor of Germany, Olaf Scholz, tells students that he showers daily.
Hallo, Herr Bundeskanzler. Die Bundesregierung hat uns aufgefordert, weniger zu duschen. Wie oft duschen Sie?
Jeden Tag.
No matter what my German voters think.
Are we the baddies?
Russia, on the other hand, sees a 38% rise in energy exports earnings this year, as reported by Al Jazeera. Russia's energy revenue is higher now than just before the war in Ukraine, U.S. officials say, as reported by Reuters. Russia confounds the West by recapturing its oil riches. Moscow is raking in more revenue than ever with the help of new buyers, new traders, and the world's seemingly insatiable demand for crude, said the Wall Street Journal. And all this money is actually being poured into various infrastructure projects in Russia. Russia is expected to pocket $337.5 billion US this year on energy exports alone. Companies that are leaving the Russian market are incurring massive losses in revenue, which will result in job losses in Europe. In Russia, however, the demand remains and the supply is being replaced by Russian companies. To summarize, Russia is getting stronger while Europe is getting weaker. So while Germans will wash themselves with a cloth while waiting in lines for toilet paper, Britons will be buying a new kettle for £20 to save £10, and the French will be sitting in the dark, Russians will be opening their windows in -30-degree weather to vent the heat from their apartments. This is not about Ukraine. Your governments don't care about Ukraine just like they don't care about you, because your governments are not yours. They belong to the government of the United States. This is about Russia finally removing the shackles imposed on it during the 90s by Western governments. This is about Russia freeing itself from the slavery under the petrodollar, something Libya, Syria, and Iraq tried to do, but, got a healthy dose of democracy instead.
We came, we saw, he died.
Are we the baddies?
Ukraine is the battlefield, and ordinary Ukrainians who don't know any better have to suffer, unfortunately. This war could have ended in April when a tentative peace deal was reached between Ukraine and Russia. Russia would pull its troops back, and Ukraine would vow to remain neutral and not join NATO. But why didn't it happen? Well, the same guy who told Britons to buy a new kettle for £20 to save £10 a year, Boris Johnson, traveled to Kiev and scuttled the peace deal for two reasons. Apparently, Putin cannot be negotiated with, which is bogus. It's completely not true. And most importantly, the West isn't ready for the war to end. That's right. The West isn't ready for the war in Ukraine to end. Think about that. The last 20 years of petrodollar interventions that Europe happily participated in brought waves of migrants to Europe, making Europe unsafe. Supporting Kosovo and turning a blind eye on the fate of the people in the Donbass for the 8 years that have been passing by turned Europe into a hypocrite. Europe losing Russia as a cheap energy supplier, while all efforts to replace Russia have failed, pushing inflation to record levels, threatening European industries, will collapse or destabilize Europe's economy. And worst of all, there are two countries left in Europe, Hungary and Poland, that are protecting actual family values. This conflict has shown that Russia has all the time that it needs to accomplish its objectives, whereas European and US weapon stocks are running low. But let's keep it simple. If the head of the family doesn't care about their children, if the family doesn't have the energy to keep the lights on at night, or the AC running, or just heating the house in general, if the family is running out of weapons to protect itself, if members of the family accept hedonism as the main family value, then you won't be a family for long, because you're on a path of self-destruction. This is not just a war between Russia and Ukraine. No, this is a war between NATO and Russia. Battlefield Ukraine is yet another NATO-inspired tragedy that the world will have to live with for years to come.
Я не верю, что эта война от вашего имени. This crisis, this tragedy, can and must come to an end.
Why the fuck you lying? Why you always lying? Oh my god, stop fucking lying.
Hans,
No matter what my German voters think.
are we the baddies?
So is Europe on a path to self-destruction? Currently, it is. Will it self-destruct? Only time will tell. See you in the comments below, like and subscribe, and thank you for watching.